We all know the age of discovery reshaped the world, as European explorers ventured into uncharted territories. But did you know that before this era, China was on the brink of dominating global trade and exploration? Then, unexpectedly, it turned inward. What led to such a dramatic shift? In this video, we'll explore the reasons behind this pivotal moment in history. The story of China's sudden retreat from the seas after the grand voyages of Zheng He is one filled with grandeur, political intrigue, and deep philosophical shifts. Let's journey back to the early 15th century, during the Ming Dynasty, when China stood as a beacon of power, wealth, and influence. The rise of the Great Voyages *. It was a time when the Ming Emperor, Yongle, sought to project China's dominance far beyond its borders. He envisioned not just a land empire but one that commanded the seas. In pursuit of this dream, he turned to a trusted eunuch, Zheng He, a man of humble origins but fierce loyalty and unshakable determination. Zheng He led a series of voyages between 1405 and 1433, with ships that dwarfed those of European explorers. His fleet sailed across the Indian Ocean, visiting places as far as Africa, Arabia, and India. These weren't mere explorations, they were missions of diplomacy and demonstration of China's power. Everywhere Zheng He went, he was met with awe. The sheer size of his ships and the riches he bore spoke of a nation whose wealth was unparalleled. His voyages opened new trade routes, spread Chinese influence, and collected tribute from foreign rulers. The world was China's stage, and its maritime strength was unmatched. But then, almost suddenly, the curtain fell. In 1433, after the seventh voyage, the massive Chinese ships that once ruled the oceans were docked for good. Shipyards closed, and ocean-going voyages were banned. China, which had been poised to dominate global trade and exploration, retreated inward. What could have caused such a dramatic shift? The internal struggle *. At the heart of this decision was a fierce ideological and political battle within the Ming court. Emperor Yongle had passed away, and his successors did not share his enthusiasm for outward expansion. The Confucian scholar officials, who held immense sway over the government, were particularly resistant. They saw the voyages as a waste of resources, an unnecessary extravagance that drained the empire's treasury without tangible benefits to the land-based economy of China. For the Confucians, China was the Middle Kingdom, the center of civilization. They believed that China had no need to venture out into the world, instead, the world should come to China. This worldview, known as Sinocentrism, shaped much of China's foreign policy. Maritime trade and military adventures, in their eyes, distracted from the Confucian virtues of stability, agricultural prosperity, and order. The voyages were expensive, and the costs were felt by those overseeing the empire's domestic affairs. With each new expedition, treasure fleets consumed more silver, drained resources from agricultural projects, and placed heavy demands on the labor force. To the Confucian officials, who prioritized farming and internal stability, this was unacceptable. A change in power *. When Emperor Yongle's more conservative successors took power, they sided with the scholar officials. They began to dismantle the imperial navy and shut down the shipyards. The Chinese court banned the construction of large ocean-going vessels, effectively ending any hope of further voyages. But this wasn't just about money, it was also about control. The powerful eunuch class, of which Zheng He was a part, had grown influential thanks to the voyages. They were seen as a threat to the traditional scholar gentry class, who sought to curb their influence. By halting the voyages, the Confucian officials also cut off the eunuch's power base, ensuring that China would be governed by the land-focused bureaucrats. The external threats *. At the same time, China faced growing external threats along its borders. The Mongols to the north had once again become restless, and the Ming Dynasty shifted its focus from maritime expansion to defending its land borders. Resources were diverted to building and fortifying the Great Wall and preparing for land-based military confrontations. The glory of the seas no longer seemed as critical when survival on the mainland was at stake. The philosophical shift *. Perhaps the most profound reason for China's retreat from the seas lay in its cultural and philosophical identity. Confucianism emphasized harmony, order, and a return to ancient traditions. While the great voyages of Zheng He were awe-inspiring, they represented a more dynamic, outward-looking worldview that didn't fully align with these Confucian values. The inward turn was a return to what many officials saw as China's true nature, self-sufficiency and internal focus. In their eyes, the real strength of the empire lay not in projecting power overseas but in maintaining harmony at home. The seas, with their dangers and uncertainties, were no longer part of China's future. The forgotten power asterisk. As time passed, the great ships of Zheng He rotted in their docks, and the shipbuilding techniques were lost. Records of his voyages were forgotten, intentionally destroyed by later emperors who feared what they represented, a reminder of a time when China dared to look beyond its borders. The decision to ban maritime voyages would have long-lasting consequences. While Europe surged forward with exploration and colonization in the centuries that followed, China remained landlocked, isolated from the new global order that emerged. Zheng He's legacy, once glorious, faded into obscurity. A story of what could have been asterisk. Imagine if China had continued its voyages, expanding its influence over the seas. It might have been China, not Europe, that discovered new worlds and forged global empires. History, as we know it, could have been entirely different. But the decision to retreat from the ocean sealed China's fate as a great land empire, but one that would eventually be surpassed by the rising powers of the West. And so, the story of China's voyages ends not with a dramatic clash at sea, but with a quiet, deliberate decision to turn inward. It was a choice rooted in deep philosophical beliefs, political struggles, and a desire to maintain order in an ever-changing world.